Title: I told my husband to lose weight or lose me. I left for a month for someone else. When I returned, a stunning girl met me at the door. Are you Mark's wife? He's busy. I was still holding my suitcase when she opened the door. Tall, calm, barefoot on the marble I chose. She looked at me the way a receptionist looks at a problem already solved. Are you Mark's wife? She asked, smiling without warmth. He's busy. Please sign these papers and leave. I felt the lock click behind her words, not on the door, in my chest. This wasn't the first betrayal. It was just the cleanest. Mark and I weren't always like this. We were built on rituals, Sunday coffee, late walks, quiet promises said like facts. When he started gaining weight, it wasn't about appearance. It was about disappearance. He stopped showing up, stopped trying, stopped touching me like I mattered. I told him the truth. Lose the weight or lose me. Not as a threat, as a boundary. He laughed it off, said love shouldn't come with conditions, said I was cruel. I left for a month. I didn't cheat. I detached. Silence is a relationship test most people fail. I wanted to see who he became when I wasn't managing his life. Turns out, he became someone else's project. The signs were there before I left. Protein powder that wasn't his brand. A new cologne, sharp, young. Gym check-ins that didn't match his schedule. And the sudden privacy. Passwords changed, phone face down. The classic choreography of guilt. I didn't confront him. I observed. When I landed back early, 3 days ahead of schedule, I didn't text, I didn't call. I drove straight home, rehearsing nothing. That's when she answered the door. She held out a clipboard, like an offering. Sign here, she said, tapping the page. It'll make this easier. I read the first line. Separation agreement, dated 2 weeks ago. Mark had been busy. I signed, not because I lost, because I wanted the game to continue. That night, I slept at a hotel and began the part of me that terrifies men like Mark, the part that plans without anger. I hired a private investigator, quiet, efficient, no morality lectures. I pulled bank statements, gym memberships, medical records he forgot I had access to. I learned her name, Ava, 24, fitness influencer. The irony wasn't subtle. I learned Mark had put the house in a trust, his trust, a sloppy one. I learned he'd been using joint funds to pay her consulting fees. I learned he'd missed 3 insurance payments. I learned love hadn't make him smarter. I called my lawyer, not to cry, to clarify. The revenge wasn't loud. It was layered. First, I froze the joint accounts, legally, temporarily. Then I forwarded screenshots, timestamps, receipts, hotel bookings to the trust's oversight board. Then I called the gym that sponsored Ava and asked one question. Are you aware your ambassador is being paid with misappropriated marital assets? They were not. Next, I filed a motion challenging the separation agreement. Improper service, coercion, undisclosed assets. It landed on Mark's desk at work during a meeting in front of people who thought he was disciplined. I waited. 3 days later, Mark called, voice shaking, apologetic, confused. He said Ava didn't understand the situation. He said he'd made mistakes. He said he missed me. I told him to come home, alone. When he arrived, he looked smaller, not thinner, smaller. Ava followed him anyway. She stopped when she saw me seated at the table. The papers were arranged neatly. Tabs, highlights, evidence, like art. You should sit, I said to her. You'll want to hear this. Mark opened his mouth. I raised a finger. I walked them through it. The trust violations, the sponsorship breach, the financial exposure, the prenup clause he forgot. Infidelity nullifies asset shielding. I watched Ava's face change as her future collapsed in bullet points. This is a misunderstanding, she said. I slid a photo across the table, her signature, his credit card, a hotel room. No, I said. This is documentation. Mark reached for me. I stood. Lose weight or lose me, I reminded him. You chose neither. You chose easy. Ava left first. No drama, just silence and a phone already buzzing with consequences. Mark stayed, long enough to sign what I put in front of him, long enough to understand that the house wasn't his anymore, long enough to realize he'd been outplayed without a raised voice. When he asked how long I'd been planning, I told him the truth, since the moment you thought I wouldn't notice. Now I live alone, in the house I paid for. The walls are quiet, the air is clean. People ask if I regret giving him the ultimatum, if I feel guilty for what happened after. I don't. I offered him a chance to grow. He offered me replacement. The girl at the door thought she was delivering papers. She was announcing the beginning. And I signed, because some endings only work when you let them think they've won.